Joshua Blahyi had an unconventional upbringing, to say the least. Born into a Krahn family in southern Liberia, he was exposed to child sacrifice and black magic at an early age. At 7 years old, his father sent him to live with several Krahn elders, where he would become a high priest at 11 years old, routinely overseeing human sacrifices. As Liberia was entering a civil war in 1989, Joshua became a warlord, leading a unit of naked children, earning himself the nickname General Butt Naked. He said that being naked during battle gave them divine protection and made them immune to bullets. His gang of psychopathic children terrorized Liberian citizens, engaging in cannibalism and child sacrifice. He estimates that he and his crew of soldiers killed 20,000 people during the Liberian Civil War. Joshua then did a complete 180 in 1996 and turned into a preacher. But is he really genuine? Welcome to History's Biggest Villains. Joshua Milton Blahyi was born on September 30th, 1971 in Monrovia, Liberia. He had ethnic Krahn family in rural Sano County in Liberia's south. Belief in black magic and ritual child sacrifice was common among them. According to his memoir titled The Redemption of an African Warlord, he was 7 years old when his father voluntarily gave him up to Krahn elders, who turned him into a warrior and initiated him as a priest in 1982. A position that required ritual human sacrifice. Joshua would have visions that would tell him who would be sacrificed, giving the person's last name to the village elders. They would then break into the person's house of honor, kidnapping and sacrificing the children on an altar. As a priest, I said the invocation, said Joshua. The child is killed. His body has different parts taken off. In 1980, Samuel Doe, who was the Master Sergeant in the Armed Forces of Liberia, staged a coup. The group entered the presidential palace and killed President William Tolbert, whose body was dumped into a mass grave together with 27 other victims of the coup. A crowd of angry Liberians gathered to shout insults and throw rocks at the bodies. Doe was also a member of the Krahn ethnicity and, according to Joshua, hired him to perform black magic rituals at the presidential palace, including to help him win a second term. In December 1989, Charles Taylor, a former official for Doe, who had received militia training and financial backing from former Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi, launched an uprising from the Ivory Coast into Liberia to overthrow the Doe regime, leading to the First Liberian Civil War. By 1990, his forces controlled most of the country. That same year, Prince Johnson, a senior commander of Taylor's group, broke away and formed the Independent National Patriotic Front of Liberia, or the INPFL. So it's like a betrayal on top of a betrayal. In September 1990, Johnson captured Monrovia, depriving Taylor of outright victory. Johnson and his forces captured and tortured Doe to death, instigating a violent political divide of the country. The Civil War turned into an ethnic conflict, with 7 factions among indigenous peoples and the Americo-Liberians fighting for control of Liberia's resources, especially iron ore, diamonds, timber, and rubber. During the conflict, Joshua became a warlord, leading a group of several dozen fighters consisting primarily of children known as the Naked Base Commandos, which operated primarily around the Monrovia area. The unit, including Blahyi himself, were naked except for their shoes and magic charms, earning Blahyi the name General Butt Naked. Blahyi claimed that this practice made him and his soldiers immune to bullets. During the conflict, Blahyi's forces perpetrated numerous atrocities, including cannibalism and human sacrifice. Blahyi would later claim that he received a vision from the devil during the war. In the vision, the devil told him that he would be a great warrior and should practice human sacrifice and cannibalism to increase his power. When talking about the atrocities he and his soldiers perpetrated against civilians during the conflict, Blahyi stated in an interview, "Sometimes I would enter under the water where children were playing. I would dive under the water, grab one, carry him under and break his neck. Sometimes I'd cause accidents. Sometimes I'd just slaughter them." General Butt Naked was a respected priest, and his child soldiers kneeled and turned away when he began to recite incantations, although they were unaware of how he was manipulating them. Many of these children were as young as 9 years old. "I planted violence into them. I explained to them that killing people was a game, he said. We made them take up arms and consume drugs. General Butt Naked led a brigade of 80 child soldiers, putting drugs in their food to keep them alert and susceptible. He also said that he fed them human remains. Anytime we captured a town, I had to make a human sacrifice, he said. They bring me a living child that I slaughter and take the heart out to eat it. The heart he would divide amongst his fellow soldiers to consume. He estimated that he and his militia had killed at least 20,000 people. To fund his side of the conflict and to keep the soldiers drugged, General Butt Naked traded with Mexican cartel members who used the Liberian coast, exchanging locally mined diamonds and gold for guns and cocaine. On April 6, 1996, the NPFL launched an operation to arrest rebel leader Roosevelt Johnson in the Monrovia region, leading to Blahyi and other militias affiliated with Johnson to resist the attempt by force of arms. The confrontation led to an intense firefight breaking out, which ultimately resulted in the forced displacement of half of Monrovia's population. According to Damon Taper of The New Yorker, during the firefight, a bystander reported seeing Blahyi standing on a truck, holding an assault rifle in one hand and a man's severed genitals in the other. But suddenly, in 1996, he had an awakening in the midst of another child sacrifice. I had a vision where Jesus met me and told me to repent and live or refuse and die, with the bloodstains of the child still in my hands. He said, claiming his soldiers knelt upon returning. We don't have conversations. They only take orders. I retreated from the front. That day, I did not fight. I could not fight that day. In July 1997, Liberia established a constitutional government, but it would not be until 2003, with the conclusion of the Second Liberian Civil War, that Liberia formed a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate the bloody atrocities that occurred during the past 15 years. The proceedings were broadcast live on TV, and Blahyi was the first former warlord to offer testimony in 2008. I would honorably walk to the court. I would walk to the court voluntarily and exercise my regret for what I accepted, what I chose 25 years ago, he said. I think it's the best for this country. And even if I want to be selfish, it's the best for my children. During his testimony, Blahyi spoke candidly, detailing how he sliced up children's hearts and shared them with the children he drugged and armed. In the end, he was granted prosecutorial amnesty. Many were horrified and unconvinced that his Journeys Against Violence initiative, working to rehabilitate 48 former child soldiers, was anything but a ruse. I mean, why wouldn't anybody be unconvinced? But Joshua visits relatives of those he killed and begs for forgiveness to this day. And although he says that a few of them have still not accepted, he appears content. Well, of course you're not going to accept. If the guy who killed your father or your son is going to come to you and say, oh, I'm sorry. Like, what? The people of Liberia, their forgiveness is relative. Some of them have forgiven me. Some of them still have not forgiven me. But I know God has forgiven me because God said it, he claimed. He said anyone who is willing to forgive, to confess their sins, God will forgive them. So I am very sure the Lord has forgiven me. Blahyi has publicly called for Liberia to establish a war crimes court in order to prosecute suspected war criminals. Oh my God, the audacity. Arguing that former warlords such as current Liberian Senator Prince Johnson should go on trial in order to account for their individual roles played in the actions of their respective troops who committed atrocities and war crimes during the Liberian civil conflicts. Oh my God. The pot calling the kettle black. In an appearance on a Liberian talk show, Blahyi states that he lives in regret almost every time, not just because of the people he made childless, but children whom he deprived of their parents. That is the story of General Butt Naked. Apparently, he's still preaching Liberia. He's still sorry for what he did. But it's just insane how you led a group of children and you killed people during you use the Civil War as an excuse to just kill civilians for no reason. But you found God and you turned it around. But I mean, if he genuinely turned it around, I'm not mad at it, but it just seems so, I don't know, like, it's going to be hard to look at somebody who once led a group of homicidal murderous maniacs and look at him as a good guy now all of a sudden. You know what I mean? It's pretty hard to make that transition from, oh, this guy's a ruthless killer to, oh, this guy's a preacher now. But let me know what you think. And I'm also going to be doing a lot more of the the African dictators, because I want to do Idi Amin next. maybe not next, but like Idi Amin pretty soon. But thank you for watching. I know I haven't uploaded on this channel in a long time. I know I've just been busy, man. I know. I apologize. But leave a like if you enjoyed that. Subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Also, don't forget to turn on my post notifications if you haven't. Thank you. I'm out. Peace.